Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to Valorant News. Another day, another major update with regard to next season's Partnership League that is coming in to Valorant, effectively franchising as some people are describing it. Sentinels, cNed and GenG apparently also through to the next stages, but 100 Thieves not been mentioned as of yet. Is it possible the 100 Thieves do not get a spot in next season's franchise era? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thanks very much indeed for doing that one. Firstly, everyone's saying, look, bring it back, split ASAP. Pearl is not it, to be honest. Like, you know, they get ratioed pretty hard right here. Play Valorant by Valor Leaks because, yes, we want split back, to be honest. Pearl, I'm not sure it's really going to cut it, but maybe with some tweaks, it can be a decent map. Middle of the map, honestly, is still a bit of a mess. Now, look, let's just dive straight into this franchise stuff because the big talking point really has been the tier 2 scene. Look at this right here. All the VCT team logos, like, I mean, obviously over many years and also many different organizations, and some teams have many different teams because Cloud9, for example, they've got quite a lot of different ones. But the vast majority of these organizations will not be involved in next season's franchise side of things, right? And even in the tier 2 scene, many organizations like Dark Zero, like a big organization down there as well, it seemed relatively likely that these guys would at least stick around. I think they treated their players rather well, but they decided, look, we're not really sure what's going to happen next year in the tier 2 scene. Riot has not revealed anything as to how the tier 2 scene is going to be run, so massive names down there, Accru, Saw, DZ as well, they're going to be gone, and they might come back in the future, right? I think Accru said that they're kind of leaving temporarily until Riot announces what's going to happen in the tier 2 scene, whether it's even worth it for organizations to get involved. But yes, the exodus continues. The exodus is going to keep on going more than likely every single day because every organization down there right now is going to look at these organizations leaving and think, well, like, why am I still here if organizations like DZ are pulling out and many other teams as well, right? So really the only teams left right now are organizations that believe they can get into the franchise side, and when they don't, or if they don't, then they might well be dipping as well, right? And of course, Riot are really going to have to think about what they do for the tier 2 scene, because often when franchise leagues come into play, of course, that this is like not really a franchise league, it's a partnership league, as people say, but effectively the idea is similar in terms of what it might look like for a fan perspective. Many, like the tier 2 scene often loses out massively, and we're already seeing that kind of play into fruition here, and it's frustrating to watch. It's difficult to see so many organizations step away because not just the orgs, but like the players themselves, right? They're on these orgs and now free agents, right? Not getting salaries. Like it's a massive shake-up in Valorant, and it's not just for the tier 2 side, but it's also for the pro side as well, right? Because if you're a guy like zyppan and cNed don't get a spot next year, what happens to you right now? zyppan's a free agent. Like, is he going to get a spot on another franchise team, on another partner team? Can he finesse a spot? But surely his entire team isn't going to get in. So it's not just the second tier, it's not just tier 2, it's the pro side as well that this affects very significantly indeed, as I'm sure you guys have realized over the last several days. Now, yesterday we talked about some organizations that have been confirmed, or at least have been heavily rumored, to get through to the next stage. So effectively the idea is Riot get all these applications in, several hundred of them or whatever, for all the different organizations that want to get involved in their partnership league, and for in the 3 different regions, Americas, Europe, I mean EMEA I guess, and then also Asia Pacific. And out of those 3 regions, there's going to be 10 to 12 teams we think in each region. For example, in North America, there'll probably be a maximum of 8 teams from North America, and then like 4 teams pretty much, or 3-4 teams from South America, Latin America, stuff like this. So bit of a mess really in terms of how many teams are going to be from certain regions, but these are the teams that made it through to the next stage. So Riot said, okay, look, we've looked through the applications. These guys, we want to continue to have discussions with you, talk about financials and stuff like this, and maybe interview some of the guys. Like, instead of just reading a CV or an effect, right, they're going to do some interviews, I'm sure, and have some discussions with these organizations to figure out what their plans are, what they're going to do, whether they will be good partners for this league. And yesterday we saw that TSM, Cloud9, The Guard, NRG, and Version 1 have moved through to that next stage. Now, apparently also so have Sentinels, cNed, and GenG. That does leave a couple of big names not even mentioned here. But yeah, Sentinels, as you might expect, we talked about them yesterday, they're going to be through seemingly no problem at all to the next stage. Same with cNed, actually, of course, have done good things as well lately, and even GenG. But the thing is with GenG, right, is they are saying that they're still not sure about the future here, right? I think they're generally a great organization to their players, so they're saying to their players, like, look, you can feel free to look for options if you would like to, just because as an organization, of course, GenG haven't done that much damage with their roster anyway, but also because, like, look, they don't really know if they're going to be there anyway. They might also wonder, GenG, as to whether, like, because it's possible that if they don't get selected for the North American League, that Riot could say, actually, okay, we want you to be part of the Asia Pacific League instead and go over there, which, of course, would mean instead that they probably pick up an entirely new roster anyway. Knight are officially gone. They're probably going to pull out as much as they, well, really can, because they still run these kind of, like, tier 2 tournaments as well, right? The Knight stuff, so, like, hopefully hopefully that can stick around. But as George describes here in the article, there's now 8 teams from North America that are through to the next stage. Sentinels, xCED, Gen.G, NRG, TSM, The Guard, Version 1 and Cloud9. Notably though, of course, not mentioned here, OpTic Gaming, 100 Thieves, FaZe Clan, those are of course some big name organizations. These were some that I would have expected, of course, to be through to that kind of next stage of discussions, but when it gets properly narrowed down, like you'd be surely that 100 Thieves is through to a stage like this. Like if Version 1 and NRG are here and Gen.G are here and xCED are here, like 100 Thieves have got to be here. And sometimes things don't really leak internally from that 100 Thieves camp, so you never really know what's going on. This, of course, are sources that are telling us this, so sources internally from the team, and maybe 100 Thieves and OpTic, just those sources don't tend to get out to the public, so probably they are through to this next stage. Like you'd imagine if they're going to choose like 7 or 8 teams from North America or whatever it'll turn out to be, like they're going to have at least probably double that maybe in the second round of discussions. But many orgs, the likes of a Crew, Saw, NYXL, they're already gone. Even Gen.G has allowed its players to explore its options because the organization cites uncertainty surrounding the process, according to 2 sources, right? So no organizations really seem to be that happy with how things are going. But wanted to mention this from Asuna on stream, where he was asked, what's going on with 100 Thieves franchising? Are they getting through? And he says they're not getting through. But look, I'm pretty sure he's joking. If you listen to the context and the way he's talking about it, it sounds like he just doesn't really know, or he does know and doesn't really want to say the truth. But I mean, yeah, like he would never be saying this if it was actually true. I would imagine that 100 Thieves aren't through to the next step.
Perfect. Want to roam around to show me how. Do you know anything about 100 Thieves Valorant franchising? No. I think we didn't make it. Did you know 100 Thieves did not make Valorant franchising? It's crazy.
That is crazy.
I don't know, like, what teams will make it if we can't.
And even as Bo says kind of along these lines, don't trust the players debating on their streams, no need to DM me clips, they're all just baiting and nothing else, right? So yeah, the players that probably, well, they maybe know what's going on, but they're not really going to talk about it publicly, at least as of yet. And 100 Thieves, there's no way they're not going through to the next stage, you would imagine, with some of those organizations in a similar boat. But, and of course, OpTic in the same boat as well, right? Why would OpTic not be there? They're the reigning champions of Masters. Like, just because they haven't been mentioned in these leaks so far, doesn't mean they're not actually through to the next stage, and still seem in like with a very good chance of qualifying for next season, right? And even as Bodok says right here as well, an organization getting into partnership does not mean their roster gets into partnership, right? So this is something you've got to think about. If you are an xCED and you don't make it through, if you're a Zekken, if you're a Cryocells, you'd imagine some of these guys will get picked up by teams that did make it through, therefore their teams will change. So that's the discussion here, right? Step 1 is getting your team in, and then step 2 is determining what your roster's going to be, because pretty much every team that even qualifies will have to consider roster changes unless I guess you win champions, just because there will be so many big name free agents on the market, because some of the free agents will play for organizations that didn't make it through, and therefore like everyone will be considering upgrades. So it's going to be a ridiculous few months here in the Valorant world. Good for some, bad for others. And even as George says, don't sign long-term contracts if you don't know whether your team will get partnered for next year. This is a big deal as well, and we don't really know which organizations have signed long-term deals. Like if you're 100 Thieves, what are the contracts these guys are on? Like, can they afford to do that if they don't qualify? And maybe he's probably talking about smaller organizations, right, that have long-term deals that aren't really sure they're going to get through regardless. But did want to mention this actually, because I'm not sure if this is related at all to the whole franchise system that's been going on, but I believe that TSM as an organization let go about 20 staff members a few days ago. People cited like the failing crypto staff and like the FTX partnerships. They had to let go a load of people, but 100 Thieves at a very similar time did basically the same thing. I think they let go like 10 content guys, like Twitter guys, like social media people, and that they pretty much released a load of their social media guys with pretty much no warning at all, 100 Thieves, within the space of a few hours. And even as Mike says right here, after 4 years, 100 Thieves, I say goodbye. So definitely it struck me as somewhat strange that 100 Thieves and TSM pretty much at the same time were doing the same thing, releasing all these people. And of course it coincides rather interestingly with the franchise applications, where maybe these organizations, 100 Thieves and TSM, were talking to Riot, and Riot said, well, actually looking at your financials, how sustainable really is this? How sustainable is your payroll? And then they thought, well, actually, now hang on a second here, we have to get rid of some people if we want Riot to be happy with us for franchising. So that, of course, is pure speculation, but it's something to think about given the fact that both these organizations, probably through to the next stage of discussions, had at a very similar time let go of a load of people just with franchising and partnership and financial discussions around the corner. So something to keep your eyes on, I'm sure, as we go forward. And that's the thing, right? 100 Thieves committed very much indeed to their project. They brought in DDK, they brought in Sean Gares, like they brought in a load of players. Like they should find themselves in a great spot to do some serious damage here, but if they don't make it through, then all that investment has effectively been for nothing. Now, I wanted to talk Sentinels as well. Of course, yes, if they're through to the next stage, like, it's certain that Sentinels are going to be there in the partnership league unless some financial things go wrong, just because the eyeballs they bring in. I'm sure Riot would do everything they could, to be honest, to make sure Sentinels are involved in their franchise league next season. Like, I mean, honestly, it seems like the Sentinels guys all day in the boot camp just making content. I don't know how much these guys are actually practicing, or maybe morning's content time and then afternoon is for practice, but I mean, there was some entertaining stuff going on right here. But also to mention this, because the last couple of weeks or so, there's been some talk from Sen that they're going to try and bring an analyst in. They bring in Weltis Games. I've been following this guy on Twitter for some time. He honestly brings some really interesting insights into Valorant in general. So congratulations to Weltis. I think he did his application effectively, and then they said, yeah, actually, this guy's pretty good. So they're bringing him in. That's great to see. I guess, I don't know if he's going to be in there in person with the team or whatever, but it's cool to see that Sentinels taking it serious, right? They're bringing in coaching staff, they're bringing in analysts, they're bringing in Zelsis. They've made some moves that make it seem like they're actually going to try and win this LCQ, and maybe they will do exactly that. Speaking of events, though, here we go with Valorant Copenhagen. It's beginning officially. Today is the first day ever, really, in Valorant history that it's going to be a match, at least in terms of the Riot official side, in front of a crowd. Now, what must be mentioned here is the fact that this crowd, I believe this is the current seating allocation. Barely any of these seats are actually being filled up here, which is honestly, like, I think it's Riot's fault, right? Because they released these tickets so late. I think there's many people in the UK and around Europe, really, in general, that would have wanted to travel to this event, but just because of the last minute, I think it was only like 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, they announced the tickets were even on sale. So by that time, by the time people can book up hotels and accommodation and travel, the tickets might be cheap, but the accommodation, the travel's most certainly not. There's a lot of hassle about it as well, especially organising last minute. So if people aren't local to the event, it's really difficult to actually, you know, really get tickets for this and make it work. So I've actually got to think about that in the future, because I feel like this event would have sold out if they've actually given a bit more notice for it, right? And I think maybe Istanbul will be hopefully not a similar story to this, right? Hopefully they can, because I'm pretty sure this crowd would have sell out in North America or elsewhere, because maybe it's easy to travel to a degree. But kind of a shame to not see a packed out crowd here for Masters Copenhagen. And just to mention this before we look at the bracket for the event, these are the top 4 teams ranked in terms of their 5v4 win rate conversion. paperX and OpTic the best of the bunch so far this tournament, and the other way around in a 4 versus 5, it's Fnatic that are best at kind of clawing back disadvantageous situations. paperX here not too bad as well. FPX and OpTic kind of significantly worse, especially than Fnatic, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to win the tournament. 2 big best of 5 today. paperX versus OpTic to determine the first round finalist, FPX Fnatic. Honestly, I don't know how to call this, and my predictions are generally terrible. I'm going to take OpTic over paperX just. I feel like Chet will have done a good job in trying to counter-strat paperX, but I think it's going to be very difficult to do that. Probably a 3-mapper. And then I think I'm going to take Fnatic over FPX. They have a lot of experience playing them in region, and I do think Fnatic are marginally the better team, but I think this is going to be close, especially on LAN. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.